From haunted houses to cursed artifacts, from whispers in the dark to battles you'll never read in scripture. This is the Unholy podcast, hosted by Doug Owen, author, investigator, and survivor of one of the most harrowing real-life hauntings ever documented. Each week, Doug pulls back the veil between this world and the next, sharing stories that aren't fiction, because he lived them. Prepare yourself. The silence is over.
Welcome back to the Unholy podcast. I'm your host, author and paranormal investigator Doug Owen. So what if I told you that we're living in the most technologically advanced time in human history? Now, you can make that claim yesterday. Everybody can make that claim every day. There never seems to be a time when you're not living in the most advanced time in human history. And yet, we are no closer to proving the existence of the paranormal than we were, say, 100 years ago. Think about that. Just for a moment. We have 4K cameras in our pockets every day, thermal imaging, infrared night vision, EMF meters, digital audio recorders, sensitive enough to capture a whisper from across the room. Artificial intelligence that can analyze patterns faster than any human mind. And still, no universally accepted proof. No lab-confirmed ghosts. No replicated spirit communication. No measurable soul leaving a body. Now, I know what you're going to say there. You're going to say, well, what about the 21 grams? Well, that test turned out to be tainted. And even though movies, social media has talked about it, there is no real evidence that the soul has weight. So, the question tonight is simple. Can technology prove the paranormal? Or is technology exposing something else entirely? The evolution of paranormal investigation. Let's rewind for just a minute. In the 1800s, spiritualism exploded in popularity. Seances, table tipping, spirit mediums claiming to communicate with the dead, photographs showing faint, translucent figures standing behind grieving families. Now, later we found out that many of those images were fraud, double exposures, stage tricks, hidden wires. Technology exposed that deception. But here's something interesting. Even in the late 19th century, serious scientists were involved. A society for psychical research was founded in 1882 in London, England. Educated scholars, physicists, philosophers, psychologists attempted to study telepathy, apparitions, and survival after death using structured documentation. They weren't fringe mystics. They were academics, and that's important. And even then, they ran into the same wall that we hit today. Anecdotal intensity, inconsistent repeatability, elusive measurable proof. Then, in the mid-20th century, investigators began experimenting with reel-to-reel tapes. You've seen them, the tape recorders, where EVPs, or electronic voice phenomenon, really gained traction. Now, Konstantin Raudive in 1960 claimed to record thousands of anomalous voices, thousands of them. His work was studied, debated, criticized, and replicated unsuccessfully by controlled laboratory experiments. People would record silence, turn up the volume, and then hear voices in the static. This is still a common practice today. Now, by the early 2000s, ghost hunting shows brought EMF meters and night vision cameras into every living room across the world. It became a household name. Paranormal investigation became equipment-driven. And it wasn't about experience anymore. It was about capture, documentation, proof. Because here's the strange thing. As technology improved, the evidence didn't become clearer. It became more debated. The tools we use today, let's break this down. So EMF meters, they measure electromagnetic fields. Simple device. Electrical wiring. Power sources. Cell phones. Appliances, right? Faulty circuits. Now, in 2002, researcher Michael Persinger conducted experiments suggesting that electromagnetic fluctuations could induce sensed presences in laboratory participants. His God helmet experiments showed that stimulation of the temporal lobe could produce feelings of an unseen presence. Feelings of a presence. Now, critics challenged his methodology, but the takeaway from this experiment was very powerful. The human brain is highly sensitive to electromagnetic influence. If you hold an EMF meter near your breaker panel in your home, in your garage, it will spike. If your wiring is not grounded properly, it will spike. So when it spikes in a dark hallway, what are you measuring? An entity? Or neurological influence? Now EVPs, digital recorders that are incredibly sensitive, but they also compress the audio. We know this. They introduce artifacts. They capture radio bleed, environmental noises, and distant conversations. Now, audio engineers have demonstrated how white noise can generate phantom syllables when filtered and amplified. You may have tried this at home yourself with Gold Wave or another type of audio editing software. And then there's pareidolia. That is where the human brain is wired to find patterns in chaos. That's just the nature of our brain. Learning, trying to discern things. That's why we're paranormal investigators. We're trying to seek the truth from things we don't understand. You hear static. Your brain tries to make it a language. That's just how it works. You want it to say something, and eventually, it does. Now, that doesn't mean that every EVP is fake. It means that human interpretation is fragile. Infrared cameras, full spectrum imaging. How many orbs have later been identified as dust particles reflecting infrared light? How many shadow figures were lens flares, insects, or compression artifacts? And yet, every now and then, there are anomalies that are harder to dismiss. Things that don't fit easily into environmental explanation. But anomaly does not equal the supernatural. Not always. An anomaly simply means that we don't understand what happened. And that gap, the space between event and explanation, is where belief lives.
You're listening to the Unholy Podcast, a program dedicated to serious conversations about the unexplained. The show is proudly broadcast on ParaX Radio, one of the leading platforms in paranormal programming. ParaX Radio brings together investigators, researchers, experiencers, and skeptics from around the world, creating a space where exploration goes deeper than entertainment. If you're looking for thoughtful discussion, first-hand accounts, and intelligent debate about the paranormal, visit parax.com and explore their full lineup of programming. ParaX Radio, where the unexplained is explored, not sensationalized.
In my experience with technology during my haunting, or during the big haunting, I should say, I used technology, recorders, cameras, monitoring devices. And I'll tell you something honest. Some of the most intense moments were never captured. The pressure in the room, the shift in atmosphere, the sense of being watched, the manipulation, the targeting of my daughter. None of that shows up cleanly on a screen. You can't record dread. You can't film spiritual pressure. You can't measure psychological intrusion with an EMF meter. There were times I wished I had definitive footage. Video. Undeniable. Something I could hand to a scientist and say, hey, explain this to me. But what I experienced didn't behave like a laboratory specimen. It behaved like something aware. And if something is aware, would it allow itself to be proven?
The Unholy Podcast is available on all major streaming platforms. You can follow and stream episodes on Spotify, Amazon Music, and other leading podcast services worldwide. Each episode dives into first-hand experiences, research-based discussion, and the difficult questions surrounding paranormal phenomena. To stay updated with new releases, be sure to follow the show on your preferred platform. And if you value intelligent exploration of the unexplained, leaving a rating or review helps more listeners discover the conversation. The Unholy Podcast, streaming now.
Why technology still doesn't explain it. Here's the problem. Technology measures physical phenomenon. Electromagnetic waves, heat signatures, sound waves, radiation. But what if the paranormal, what if it exists and doesn't operate cleanly inside what we consider measurable physics? Now, what that means is, what if we can't measure it with current technology? Quantum physics still debate the role of observing in collapsing wave function. Consciousness may play a role in reality at levels we barely understand. Things like the Matrix have brought that to life. What if our consciousness is controlled by an artificial intelligence? What if our focus determines our reality? What if we're able to manifest just through sheer will of force? Now, I'm not saying that ghosts are quantum mechanics. I'm saying we just fully don't understand consciousness itself yet. And if consciousness survives biological death, even in some form we don't yet comprehend, our current instruments may not be built to detect it, at least not yet. What if it interacts with consciousness? What if it manipulates perception? What if it responds to attention? Now, we assume that if something is real, it has to leave a measurable trace, right? But here's the kick. Not everything that is real is easily measured. Memory is intangible. Fear is intangible. Intent cannot be weighed. And yet, all of those things are real. So maybe the issue isn't that we lack better equipment. Maybe we're trying to measure something that doesn't function like electricity. And I want to end this episode a little bit differently here tonight, because this isn't just theory for me. This isn't just some academic exercise. When something targeted my daughter, I wasn't thinking about EMF spikes. I wasn't thinking about peer-reviewed journals. I wasn't thinking about camera angles or laboratory experiments. I wasn't thinking about scientific observation. I was thinking about protecting my child. Technology didn't shield her. Technology didn't explain what was happening to her. And technology didn't comfort her. What mattered in those moments wasn't proof, wasn't if I was able to capture it on film or document it in some way. It was presence. It was protection. It was standing between her and whatever was pushing against our lives. Now, as you know, there is a kind of responsibility that comes with being a father or a parent. And when something unseen begins to manipulate your home, you don't care whether academia validates it, or cameras record it, or witnesses see it, which in my case many did. You care whether your child sleeps at night. That experience changed how I looked at evidence, because sometimes the most real things are the things that never show up on playback. Now, she won't remember whether we captured an EVP, she'll remember whether her father stood firm. And that is something no instrument can measure. And since we're talking about real things that instruments cannot measure, let's talk about love. The affection you have for your children or spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, family member, friend. That is real. Can it be captured? Can it be measured? You can measure it in your own heart, but there's no technology to measure that.
The experiences discussed on the Unholy podcast are not fiction. They are drawn from lived events. Doug's first-hand account of a sustained haunting as documented in the book, The Unholy Silence. The book details the investigation, the psychological toll, and the impact on his family, offering a deeper look at what happens when paranormal events move beyond theory and into daily life. The Unholy Silence is available worldwide through Amazon in paperback, hardback, and ebook formats. For those who want the full account, the story begins there.
Now, I lived through something that no device fully captured. I have some photographs which are in my book, The Unholy Silence. You can see these entities, whatever they are, which I still fully don't understand what they are. Maybe the problem isn't that we don't have better cameras. Maybe the problem is that we're trying to measure something that doesn't live entirely inside of our reality, inside of our physics, what we know to be science. We're trying to measure something that we don't understand, and that is why we investigate the paranormal. This is the Unholy Podcast. Stay grounded and keep skeptical. Stay aware, be aware, and beware, because sometimes the silence is the most terrifying thing.
You've just heard another chilling chapter of the Unholy Podcast, hosted by Doug Owen, author, investigator, and witness to the things most fear to name. For more real stories, cursed objects, and exclusive content, step deeper into the dark at authordougowen.com. Subscribe, share, and remember, some silences aren't empty, they're waiting.